Hello everyone, my name's Sarah Pavey and I'm an education consultant and trainer based in Epsom in Surrey in the United Kingdom. I'm delighted to be invited to talk again at this great conference, this time leaping into the future of school libraries. I'm here today to tell you about a European project that I've been involved in called Bridge, which looks at information and digital literacy for primary school children aged between 8 and 11 years old. I hope you're going to be interested in the research findings of the Bridge project, and also that you'll be able to make use of the wonderful free resource we've created, a portal of children's storybooks, picture books, and also some useful web resources for information and digital literacy. So here we can see the scope of this presentation. We're going to look at the aims of the Bridge project and understand the research findings from the 6 participating countries. I'm also going to look at some practical ideas about how you might use the Bridge database within your own classes and your own students aged between 8 and 11 years old. So let's begin by taking a look at the Bridge project. You can see here the link to the website. So Bridge was an Erasmus Plus funded project, and it brought together 6 European countries led by Spain and including Italy, Finland, Turkey, Greece and England. The working language and the main language of the report and the portal is English. And as well as the invaluable research findings and the resulting database, we learnt an awful lot about multinational collaboration. And I really would strongly advise if anybody gets the opportunity to take part in a similar project, rise to that challenge. The Bridge project is designed for primary school students aged 8 to 11 years and their families. Also, primary school educators, education institutions, educational leaders, regional teaching offices and networks and stakeholders, and not least, school libraries and public libraries. On this slide, we can see the core objectives as laid out at the beginning. The purpose was to put information and digital literacy at the core of primary education, so that critical thinking and ethics and equality are at the very heart of learning competencies for critical information and digital literacy. We also encouraged the reading for pleasure and also for inquiry, and for this to promote contextualization of literary or digital documents through information and digital literacy activities. And we also tried to enhance the understanding and the value of the school library. There were 3 main outcomes to the project: an in-depth research report, which considered current legislation and support for digital and information literacy in the curriculum of each participating country. And from the results, we were then able to suggest strategies that we might take to put into practice to further these connections. Secondly, it was about the creation of this online open access portal of picture books and database resources that could be used to embed these competencies in teaching and learning. And I'll show you more of that later. And thirdly, we developed a training seminar and booklet to underpin the pedagogy and the practice to illustrate the best use of the resource that we've created. And again, I'll explain how that's available on the website. Every country was asked to contribute a section to the report to look at the state of information and digital literacy provision in primary schools. We then began with the laws and regulations governing this approach, and we could see here the differences that emerged between the 6 countries. Some countries were definitely more concentrating on digital safety and usage, whereas others were looking at how information literacy could contribute to global citizenship. We next considered the content of the curricula and identified some common trends when looking for examples of information and digital literacy instruction with critical thinking and equality values. Again, some differences emerged alongside the common strands. And here we have some further findings. Again, you can see how some countries concentrated on particular aspects of these competencies, whereas others had a different approach. Following the legislation and the curricula, we conducted surveys in each country looking at how this guidance was put into practice. From the results of the surveys, we were able to do a SWOT analysis, looking at strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And from this, we were able to suggest strategies to enhance engagement with information and digital literacy teaching in our primary schools in our countries. Again, you can see similarities and differences in what was recommended. Here are some further findings and strategies. The full results of all our findings are available on the Bridge website. We used the findings from the report and surveys amongst teachers and librarians in our individual countries to inform the construction and content of our Bridge portal. The link to the portal is shown on the slide, and it should be emphasised that this is open source, and so it's completely free to use. We chose the picture books on the basis that they support our criteria for the project, and many of these are silent, meaning they don't depend on language. We only selected digital resources that are free. The portal can be searched by selecting from the 6 different columns you can see, and within each column there are further selection options. So let's imagine we're doing a search using English in the column of languages and environment in the topic column. Here is a snapshot of some of the resources retrieved by this search. You can see that several are in different languages, but because we search for English, we know that there's an English translation in addition to the original text. Note too that some of the resource websites have been retrieved, including the UN Sustainable Goals. If we click, for example, on the Good News record, it would open in a more detailed view. Here, as a teacher, we could learn about the content of the book, the synopsis, and find details to allow us to purchase it or find it online. We could discover whether it had won any awards. And also there is a link to WorldCat to see if any libraries keep copies that we might be able to borrow. Knowing how to make the best use of this resource is vital, and so part of our project was to develop an online training seminar and a downloadable PDF brochure giving ideas on the pedagogy and how a picture book might be explored with your class to embed information and digital literacy competencies, as well as enhancing their critical thinking skills and generally opening discussions around equality, diversity, and inclusion. A recording of this and also a downloadable PDF brochure can be found on the Bridge website. So let's have a look at how the training brochure might work in practice. I'm going to take you through a few elements of it. Picture book chosen to illustrate how to use this sort of resource in your teaching to encourage information and digital literacy competencies, and also to enhance values of equality, diversity, and inclusion, was this Finnish book, which translates as "We Had to Leave." It's about refugees. And it's one of the first silent books, i.e. a book with no language in it, that was published in Finland. And it was designed to appeal to 8 to 11-year-olds. The selection of books in our portal was quite specific to encompass the values and the aims that we were trying to achieve. The training booklet was designed to underpin theoretical pedagogy and to show how this can be applied in practice. It's important that we understand the dynamics of teaching in a critical but holistic way. And in the diagram, we can see how elements feed into the process of becoming an independent, critical learner. We can see that though the student is at the centre, Many people, such as educators, families, and even authors, and crucially, the social environment, have a part to play. Without these elements, students may fail to reach the level required to truly understand information behaviour and will not be productive about the outcomes of their reading. There are many models which suggest ways in which this can be taught in terms of information and digital literacy. Do you use any models in your teaching for this type of competency or during inquiry-based learning? Using this picture book as an example, 4 strands of information literacy are exemplified in the training booklet, showing you how to embed this in the teaching that you deliver. The first strand is wonder. This step emphasises the importance of stimulating curiosity and deliberating on both the questions we want to ask and the way in which we can find the answers to those questions. So a key question is, what do we want to know? The next strand is explore. This step points to information seeking, including locating and accessing appropriate information sources and examining them carefully. This may involve organising information, reading, listening and watching, and making notes. The key question here is, what can we find out, where and how? The next strand is communicate. This requires using the information that's been found in suitable ways. This might include selecting it in the right format and genre to respond to the questions asked, and then to communicate it to others. So the key question is, how can we share what we have learned? Final strand is reflect. And this is a step that's central to all the other ones. It highlights the need to think about what we did. What did it result in? What does it mean to us? And how could we have done things differently? This applies to the ways that we have sought and used the information, and also to the whole learning process and experience. So the key question here is, what did we learn? How do you think you could apply these strands to your classroom or library teaching? The training brochure also goes through the picture book and looks at some of the illustrations. It suggests that you read the book one picture at a time, and then you can try different approaches with the different pages that you find. And we can use open-ended questions. We can use those what, when, where type prompts. And we can use distancing prompts as well. I'll come on to that in a bit. You can ask the learners, what do they see in the pictures? For example, what do you think is happening in the picture? Who's in the picture? And what else is in the picture? What place could this possibly be? What does it look like? What do you think the colours tell you? And what about the people's postures and their facial expressions? What do they convey? How do the pictures on the opposite pages affect the reader? For example, here we've got a picture of some bomber planes on one side, but what are the lights on the other side trying to depict? What things are repeated on the pages of the book? In this example, it's the star. These are all the types of prompts that we could ask students. And obviously, we might decide to change the nature of those prompts depending upon the age group. Prompts ask children to relate to the pictures or the words that they see in the book, anything that they're reading and the experiences maybe they have. We can use a distancing prompt to help children to form a bridge between the books and the real world, as well as helping with their verbal fluency, conversational abilities, and narrative skills. So in this situation, we might say, what would you do in this situation? Or if that's a bit difficult, we might say, do you think you've ever thought in a similar way to one of the characters in this book? Maybe you've had to move house to a new environment, or perhaps you've changed school. We can relate this to real life. The book that's been chosen for this training booklet is a fiction book. However, it's actually based on some factual information. And so we could help students to think about what they need to find and to verify in order to relate it to a real life situation. It might be looking at the rations that they might need to survive. It might be the geography of the location. It might be the history behind the conflict and how they could avoid seasickness when they're on the boat. Through this, we can guide students to use the library catalogue or a search engine on the web, or think of appropriate keywords and select defined terms. This is where using a picture book is useful because there are few text prompts and it encourages students to select their own vocabulary and to learn how that affects the outcome of what they may find. There may even be some useful online sites on the Bridge portal that they could look for. How did students in your class find information they need at the moment? Is it reliable information? Would they know if it was not to be trusted? We can think about modelling the positive, concentrating on what makes a resource appropriate and trustworthy, rather than constantly trying to catch out those that are designed to mislead. Picture books are an amazing source of information, and too often they're underestimated in the power they can deliver. We hope that in the Bridge portal, you're going to find some really useful picture books that you can use in this way. And you can use the training brochure to help you understand the best way to present this in your teaching. By visiting 4 of the participating countries for our in-person meetings, as well as presenting our findings of the Bridge project at the European Information Literacy Conference, ESIL, in Poland, we gained a real insight into other cultures. And I think this helped us to identify with the types of resources that would have a broad appeal. I think we had it lucky because the working language was English, and I am full of admiration for all the Bridge team members who were able to work so fluently in a second language. So I thought I'd just include a few snapshots of our travels. In this first one, in September 2022, we went to Castellón in Spain. Spain were coordinating the project. Here you can see the centre of Castellón. This is us enjoying our first team lunch together on the beach in Spain. Although it was September, it was about 29 degrees, so it was very nice indeed. And there you can see the deck chairs that we abandoned. Maybe not. Our next trip in April 2023 was to Corfu, and we were invited by the Greek team. Here you can see the entrance at the airport. Fantastic. We could walk to our hotel from the airport. It was only a 30-minute walk. Here we all are outside the university, the Ionian University, in the sunshine again. How lucky was that? And the third picture just shows that as a cultural experience, we were invited to join in the Easter music rehearsal that was going on in Corfu. In September, we visited Genoa in Italy with our Italian team. Here you can see on the left-hand side, Christopher Columbus's house. So we really felt we'd arrived. This is a picture of the whole Bridge team on the stairs of the university. What a cool building. It was a palace. And then the other picture depicts the brand new and absolutely beautiful children's library that you find in the harbour in Genoa. In October, we went to Poland, to Krakow, where we took part in the ESIL conference. And here is a picture of us in front of the poster. We also did a panel presentation, but this is the Bridge team who made it there in front of the poster. Over on the left-hand side, I departed for one evening and went and played some Irish music in a bar with a lot of Polish people. And over on the right-hand side, there's a shot of a beautiful trip we did to the salt mine where you could see the cathedral that's all completely carved out of salt. It's absolutely amazing. Finally, our final trip was to Ankara in November, well, right at the end of November, beginning of December. Here we've got a shot from the castle looking right over into the sunset. Our working meeting that we had at Ankara University, and here we all are hard at work on our computers with a few snacks. We certainly didn't go short on the snacks. And finally, over on the right, we had a trip to Cappadocia, which has got to be one of the most memorable things of all these projects. It was something I'd never imagined in my entire life. It was beyond belief, literally. So my parting message is to encourage you all to use this wonderful resource and to tell as many of your teaching colleagues about it as possible. There's no commercial sponsorship and it's there for your use completely free. So please use it and tell us how you got on. Any suggestions for refinement or expansion, feedback, anything would be most welcome, and please contact us through the website pages. Or alternatively, you can contact me directly using any of these contact details. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope that you've enjoyed this presentation, and I hope you continue to enjoy all the other amazing presentations that you're going to find here at this conference. Thank you.